Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk Jan Upkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for tuning in to episode 126. My guest today is Yasmina Khababi, and as you'll learn, Yasmina is an extremely mission-driven woman who is passionate about food, connecting people, and building something that solves for systemic inequality. When Yasmina studied climate change and the refugee crisis, she got frustrated because her fellow students cared about one problem or the other, but almost never about both. Yasmina saw the link and she realized that food could connect the two. That insight was the start of her journey as an entrepreneur and of her company Freshtable. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, Yasmina shares how she uses food to build a company based on permissionless inclusion. By listening, you'll discover how she built a platform that is bigger than herself, why inclusion is not about identity but about identifying talent, and what it means when she says that founders need to treat their minds as a sanctuary. Plus, you'll hear how she uses her geographical luck to give others access to opportunity, and how you can do that too. Before we start, I want to highlight an event that Embrace Health organizes on 3 December 2025 at Equals in Amsterdam, titled Understanding Women's Health. As you know, I'm really passionate about this topic and about the need for everyone to learn more about how women's health works and how it is different from the health of men. If you visit this event as a man or a woman, it will help you to better understand women's health and how it impacts energy, mood, productivity, and overall well-being at every stage of life. For more information and tickets, please check out the link in the show notes or search for Understanding Women's Health in the Luma app. With that, when you're ready to listen and learn how Yasmina Khababi is building permissionless inclusion one meal at a time with Freshtable, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Yasmina Khababi. Yasmina Khababi, good morning. Good to have you. An honor
Good
to have
morning.
you. Um, Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. First question I have is you're the founder of Freshtable, and I read somewhere that starts with you sitting in a lecture.
Correct. Yeah, I am the founder of Freshtable, which I started in 2020, so 5 years ago, while I was still studying international public administration. And the topics we were discussing were always about climate change and societal issues that we can solve. And many of these issues were discussed and actually inspired me to start my business. So it was actually a student founded corporation at some point.
Hmm.
I was very frustrated about how people were dealing these topics, and it didn't really lead to any solutions. And I saw different camps existing. So people were really thinking in boxes and labels. How some would really be annoyed and care about things that involved climate change, and the same people could not care any less when it came to refugees, for example, or just basic human rights. And that really didn't click with me because I was like, both of those things are super important. So, how can we connect them and make sure that it's just normal that we care about both of these things? You should care about people and planet. And then food became the instant connector between those two.
Okay. Except for food, what is the connection between the two
Yeah.
topics? Because I think I have a clue, but
Yeah. So food has been part of my life since forever. I think just growing up, I have a Moroccan heritage, but I was born and raised in the Netherlands. Food always plays a really big cultural role of really connecting people together. I grew up with three sisters, so there was always some bickering at home. But whenever my mom would serve the food on the table, it would be quiet. We'd all just enjoy the meal, and that's very symbolic for different opinions and different causes that are happening around the world. We can all still connect over simple things because at the end of the day, we are still human, all of us. We still bleed, but we also are still hungry. So I think that was like the basics of it. And then after that, one of my first jobs was in the food sector. I've been in that sector since I was 15. So I also worked as a sushi chef for quite some time. And all those combinations have really inspired me to really link that together.
Okay. And but the link between climate and refugees, what is that?
It's a very obvious one, actually. And I think people really underestimate how much these two have to do together. So living in the West, we consume a lot, and that's just it's not a discussion point. We consume a lot, and that also comes from different places. But when we look at refugees, a large part of them are also climate refugees, where we use a lot of their resources when it comes to oil just to produce plastic, those kind of things, and that also leads to certain influxes of migration, people having to leave their homes because they're flooded, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really interconnected in that sense, but also in different ways. When we think about climate change, you really often only look at it from one perspective. Also, when we look at sustainability, but I think if we strip down things and really remove labels, sustainability has been within us as human beings for the longest times, and especially in the global south. So, people that we now claim to be refugees really have a lot of those sustainable practices that are more than normal. So, just a simple explanation or for people that are at home, if you're cooking and you have some leftovers, you automatically probably would save them for the next day. Those are sustainable practices. Or as my grandma used to do, is saving all those plastic bags under the sink. She's one of the most sustainable people that I know, but if I would tell her that she's a sustainable person, she would look at me like, what does that mean? Like, I'm not sustainable, or turning down the lights, or not showering that long. Those kind of things are all part of sustainable practices, and I see them being often performed more in the global south. So I feel like if we talk about climate change, we also should involve the influx of people in that, and they should go hand in hand.
Okay. But does that then also mean that if we sort of become more sustainable in the West, that we get less influx from refugees because climate doesn't deteriorate anymore, and therefore people don't have a reason to leave?
No, not at all. I think it's just one of the links, but I think the issue at hand is much bigger than that. There's so many parts of that, and there's different types of refugees, people that flee politically, and
Hmm.
climate is just one of those reasons. Um, but I do think, and that's more like in a political sense, is that if we really focus more on our likeliness instead of our differences, maybe certain influxes wouldn't be named refugee crisis anymore, and would just be people migrating for better opportunities, and would actually embrace this instead of seeing it as something that is a societal issue that we have to deal with. So I'm like really trying to look at that in that sense, that if you would care more about the climate and about people, certain issues would not exist. It doesn't mean that people are not moving around, because that has been happening since for centuries.
Yeah.
But I think it would be more focused on what can we learn from each other, and I think that's also something that we really try to install in Freshtable, because we work with predominantly former refugees, but also with different kind of subgroups, where we really focus on what's your talent and how can we contribute to each other's lives, and how can we really make the world a better place together. So it's not really focusing on the label, you are a former refugee or you are this and that. It's just what are your talents and how can we really stimulate that.
Okay. How did you come up with that model? And
Yeah, I there's not some kind of genius plan behind it, to be honest. There's different factors. So maybe to really explain Fresh Table in short, is that we provide business catering for events, and we do that with meals that really impact the world on a sustainable sense, on food accessibility sense, and in the terms of inclusivity of people in the labor market. So those are the three core values. And in a short example, that would mean if you have an event at corporate X, we would take care of the catering, because if you take catering from us instead of another catering party, you actually help people and planet become better. So that's in short what we do. And how I came up with that is I really wanted to instill those three core values because, as I just explained, I don't believe in just thinking in those boxes. I really want to interconnect those three and make it more normal. So during my studies, I was really looking at these topics from policy level,
Hmm.
but as just one lens. But at the same time, I did a lot of volunteer work. So as part of Amnesty International, for example, I traveled a lot to perform student volunteer work abroad. And that really brought me into more the practical perspective and actually see what these policies mean and why they would or would not work. And that's where I did some volunteer work in a local spot where we would cook every week with former refugees. And I remember one time asking them, "Do you like doing this?" And they said, "Yeah, I'm really grateful." So someone I asked, "Do you like doing this?" And then I got back, "Well, actually, I feel useless in society because I've been in the Netherlands for more than 6 years, but I'm actually bank director. I'm an engineer. I have knowledge of tech, for example, and I hear like all these different stories and people that have high degrees and masters, but they're not able to perform their work in the Netherlands just because your diploma is not accredited according Western standards." And that really struck something to me. So what I did was researching them back on policy level. Is there something that's against the law of allowing me to hire people based on their degrees that they obtain in their own country? And I couldn't find anything. And I thought, then what the heck? Why not? Why not start a business that would actually allow people to have their work here and assist them in customizing to the Dutch standards of that? So if somebody, for example, we had an bookkeeper from Egypt that came here and had the hardest time searching for a job. And then we offer him an apprenticeship slash internship where we actually can assist him with customizing to the Dutch tax laws, for example, but he's still performing his work and knowledge. So it's an equal opportunity for both parties to really exchange information. And to be honest, we actually gained so much more from them and we learned so much more from them than we could ever offer them. So that was really where it came from. And personally, and that's just my story, I really hate sitting in frustration. I feel like it's a waste of time. I get to be frustrated once and then you have to take action. So either you shut up about it or you take action. That's really how that business came to life. And I was thinking about this group of people that I really wanted to see be advanced more and not thinking of the sense of helping others because I feel like self-efficacy and really empowering people, that's the key to the future, and not having that mindset or of I'm helping others, because it also puts yourself in the ego sense at a front as a founder. And I'd rather have a team where people believe in their own leadership skills and believe that they can grow. So that's really the basics behind it from my perspective.
Why is
And
that important to you? To not be helping but giving?
yeah, because I've experienced the part where you're helping, but what's actually happening is that you are also feeding your ego, which is it's common to human sense, like it happens to everyone. Short examples that I lived in Brazil for a while, where I did a lot of volunteer work with kids that were living in favela. So we're predominantly focusing on preventing child prostitution and those kind of things. But what I could sense is whenever I went away or went back home, some things would stop or the kids would miss you and something would not advance. And I think that's a really humbling experience to know that some kind of aid and advancement of people's lives should not be dependent on your presence. And I think if we really want to create an impact as a leader, a good leader in my terms is measured by the amount of leaders that you create. So fast forward like 10 years later, now we also have a foundation with Freshtable, and we focus more on really empowering those kids in starting their own social enterprise or starting their own business. And I think that's really a difference because I also tell people, and even like within the organization, when it comes to former refugees, my goal and my dream is that you do not need me or us to advance, and that you will become the leader of the future. And I think if you teach a man how to fish, that's like the basic saying of
Yeah.
course. I think that's why it's really important to me on a leadership sense and personal wise. I am really mission oriented. So when I turned 19, before that, I was studying international business. I was good at it, but I didn't like it. And it was because I was still missing something. We're always counting the profits and the net margin, whatever. And I was always wondering, okay, but what's happened to the people? How are they treated? And what can we do for the planet? And at some point, I think teachers were really tired of me because they're like, we have 600 more students. We're just counting the profit here. But for me, it became really important to really think beyond profit. What's going on there? So it's really the mission behind it. And I think combining those two, I really care about creating the next generation of leaders and empowering people that have been minoritized. So they're not minorities in my eyes, but have been minoritized by media standards, people's opinions. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very
Yeah.
long answer,
No,
but
no, there's a couple of nuggets that I want to pick up on. One is what influence did your upbringing have? Because you have a special philosophy about
yeah,
geographical luck.
correct.
Can you explain that and then build on that to explain a bit how you were raised and how that plays into what you do right now?
Of course. So I was raised in a very loving home that was always open and caring for others. And it would be weird if there's not somebody new sitting at the table, for example. So I was always bringing somebody home that I just met at the bus stop. But that's also something that my mom installed in us. But also, I think even before that, my grandparents were always welcoming people, whole families that were staying with them for weeks. And I think they made it so normal that I was never questioning why that was happening. It was just there's an open door, and it got stuck to me that we all just have geographical luck in this world. We are lucky that we're born here and not somewhere else in a war-torn country. You just have that luck of being born in some place that offers you more opportunities. And I think it's important in life to not only use that luck, but also appreciate it and give on to others that are not that blessed with that luck. And I think really centralizing that in life is really important to me. And it just became something that's really completely normal in my book to open your doors and welcome somebody at your table, even figuratively, but also when it comes down to your business, giving more opportunities to people that are often not seen and really sharing that luck that I was blessed to have. And I would not describe myself as a minority, but I am a woman. I'm a woman of color. I am Muslim, and even despite those things, I still have my privileges as well because I studied in the West. I have my master's degree and I am an entrepreneur. So maybe there's different fields that I still can also pass that luck on people that may not have that same luck.
Yeah. So you do that. Uh, why don't others?
That's a good
What's your
question. Yeah,
about
it
your
depends. I think it's not a way of not wanting to do that because what we realize that a lot of people want to do good. I feel like people inherently, that's always the question, right? Like the goose and the egg. Like, are people good from the essence or does everybody have some bad in them? I think people in general really want to do something good. They often just don't know how. And what you can really see with Freshtable, for example, we really believe in making our customers the hero on this mission. Freshtable was just a facilitator of that story. We always see ourselves as the platform. We never want to be seen as the hero, but also me as a founder. I don't want to be centralized like that. We are just a platform that really helps you create an impact. So we facilitate, for example, for corporates like a bank X, for example, that wants to hold an event, for them to choose for us instead of their standard caterer means they're choosing impact because often they have these long-term contracts with people for like 10 years, and then we've seen a lot of times that they would switch out just to go with us because we create an impact. So it's an active choice to really make a difference. So in that sense we want to facilitate that, and a really good example of that is we have a share a meal campaign that's been running since the first year, and that was actually founded in because I started Fresh Table a week before COVID, which is perfect timing as a social enterprise in the food sector, and completely bootstrapped, so no regrets. But a good lesson there is that we had a lot of products still laying there, packaging and people, but there were no orders coming in because of the regulations. So restaurants were opening, then our sales went down, and then so it went like that the whole time. And then I thought, okay, let's see what we can actually do. But there were still a lot of elderly people that are living very confined. So what can we do to contribute to them? And I had a lot of friends abroad and a lot of support. And they actually said, what can we not donate something? And that really didn't feel that good to me because I thought, how can I really incorporate this into the business? And that's how Share a Meal was born. So that means that you can buy, for example, hamburger, and instead of one, you buy two. One goes to you, and the other one goes to somebody in need. And because we have the skills, the resources, and the knowledge locally, so we know exactly, because of our experience, we work a lot with the homeless shelter, but also with the refugee center, some women asylum seeker centers. So there's really different networkings that we have built up in the past years that people might feel more anxious to get into. So we use that skill and we use all that knowledge to facilitate for others to do good, because we really realize from a lot of conversations that I've personally with a lot of people is I really want to do something similar, but I just don't know how. So we try to be an example of how you can really make it easy to help another person. So that year we started with around 300 meals that were donated, and fast forward to 2025, we're over 14,000 meals, and it's still counting. And we're just facilitating that. We're not the ones that are responsible for all this goodness that is creating. It's actually the customers themselves. And I think it's really important in life to understand the role of being a bridge and facilitating doing good for others. And I think that's, yeah, the gist in it.
Yeah, that's what clearly you are doing. So there's another thing about the Freshtable business model that I was wondering about. You gave the example of the Egyptian bookkeeper.
Hmm.
So this guy knows bookkeeping. I don't think general booking keeping practices are that different from Egypt to the Netherlands, except for tax, of course. Um, but how do you work in terms of accreditation? Because that's the underlying issue that he has, that his accreditation doesn't fit our accreditation. How do you deal with that? And
Yeah,
how do
so
you, on the back of that, how do you put people on a journey on the path to getting locally here fully accredited?
yeah, that's a good question. So it's twofold. Within Fresh Table, we actually started the Fresh Academy. And so we have different apprenticeships and internships starting from 8 weeks. And
Hmm.
it's an equally yoked relationship. So we review each other. So, for example, another person, we had an IT a guy from Syria who actually did his master's there, and he's still studying here to regain different degrees in IT. But he does our website, for example, or anything in the back end. And important that role is that we evaluate each other on an equal level, because accreditation doesn't only come from us or the system, it also comes from just one person that believes in that person. We also have a lot of people that actually did an apprenticeship with us and then later on started working somewhere else without having that Dutch degree. But because there was one Dutch company, such as Fresh Table, that actually believed in them, it also gives them more backing. So not all of them get an accreditation. What we try to do is really help them with the Fresh Academy that's still evolving. We're working on new programs where they can actually get, yeah, some extra certifications that can help in the Dutch labor market. But at the same time, we also believe in the power of having somebody behind you within the Netherlands that has a certain influence. We have a really large network as yeah, a deliverer to the in the B2B sector. So a lot of those corporates are our clients. So if somebody's looking for a job, we are the first referee that you could put down because they were part of that. So the accreditation works twofold. So we have it within the academy to a certain degree, but also us backing the people that have worked with us. And important to notice in that is that there's a lot of organizations in the Netherlands that work with refugees in terms of offering them a working experience here. For us, the main goal is not to actually place them somewhere else. That's just a side effect of it. But I'd rather see people starting with us, for example, in those 8 weeks, and actually climb on that career ladder in the same organization so they can actually become a leader. Because I think that is still a main issue if I look at the Dutch landscape in this matter. So we have a lot of companies that provide opportunities for refugees, but it just ends with hiring them, and then we can mark them as a check. Okay, so we have a lot of people that have a refugee
Yeah.
background, check, but we're not really looking at what happens to them. Do they advance on their career ladder? And the same goes for back in the days, just hiring women. So we hired a
Yeah.
lot of women, but what are they still doing? Are they in the boardroom or are they still in the productive area? And I think that's really important when we talk about diversity and inclusivity, and really the difference between those two. So diversity is just hiring them and making sure they have a job, and inclusivity is really seeing that they are included in growing their role within the company and they are actually feel valued. So those two things are the most important in that, and us backing them, I think, is the most important accreditation they could have.
Do you see a shift in that from diversity to inclusion
Um,
in the employers you work with?
Yeah, I do, but I also believe that I personally live in a certain bubble, of course. We
Uh,
are a social enterprise, so I don't know if my opinion on that would be so unbiased because we are surrounded with companies. Most of our clients, for example, they come to us 70% it's because of the impact that we make. Um, but also on the other side, 30% just comes to us because they know of the quality of the food and things that we serve, and then they stay for the impact. So the story is always twofolded of how we attract certain customers. Some come for the story and stay for the food. Some come for the food and they stay for the story. So I do see a slight change in that, but not enough yet. I hope that we can really advance that and really start talking with people rather than just about them.
yeah. What is the broader societal change that you want, the impact that you want to make?
Um, I My dream vision is
Yeah.
that we don't even need terms like diversity, inclusion, sustainability. We don't need different departments for that and set them up because it would become normal. And that is my dream vision in a nutshell. And it's also why when I founded Freshtable, I instilled them in my core values because I want them to be a no brainer. There's no decision that we make business wise. We had a lot of talks with potential investors that reached out to us, but all of these decisions would always come into the three pillars of inclusivity, sustainability, and food accessibility. If it doesn't fit one of those, it should go out. And my dream vision is that we create more startups and hopefully more corporations that see these things as non brainers. And it would actually be weird for you to not do something with inclusivity or diversity or sustainability rather than being, and again, I'm really grateful for that, but rather than being super acknowledged for everything that you do in that sense.
Yeah. So I was wondering, I think you're bootstrapped, right?
Yeah, correct.
So far, on purpose, or you just didn't meet the right investor?
It was definitely on purpose. Maybe a little ego too. Gotta admit, I just also wanted to prove that it is possible. It is possible. I started as a student. I was full time studying. I was also still working in the office, and then starting my business at the same time, doing a lot of volunteer work. I wanted to really show the world and also show people that it is possible. It's not some kind of idealistic thinking. We can actually make a profit and make the planet better because I still make a profit and I don't want to be seen. That's also why we started the foundation. I want to be seen as just some kind of charity cause. We are a commercial business. We have a business model that sells things, and also wanted to show that you can do this independently. It actually has it is advantages. We have our own customers. It's growing. We may break even, and even like surviving that during COVID also says a lot. And for me, looking back now, I think 5 years later, now we're open to talks with investors or possible subsidiaries from the government. And the tables have actually turned. So it's really nice to sit at those tables because they're actually reaching out to us. So they're like, how can we help you? And then I asked her, well, give me a presentation. Show me what you can do for us. Because it's not the other way around. I'm not going there empty handed and asking them and really having to prove what we've done because we actually have proven that we've been existing for 5 years during one of the most tougher times for businesses. And having bootstrapped that also shows that we are a commercial viable organization. It's not something that we're just believing that does good and it still has to be proven. We actually have a model that works. And I think that was really what I wanted to prove with bootstrapping that, and also give an example to other entrepreneurs, whether it be women or just people that are interested in creating an impact. It is possible if you believe in it. I wouldn't per se say that everybody has to bootstrap it. I also really believe in, yeah, funding at some point. But that was just the promise that I made to myself.
Okay. Let's go first to the you don't want to call it charity. I'm going to just call it charity for the moment. You have a foundation that are funded by the business that you run, right? So how does that ultimately then also play into your vision to have
Yeah,
those?
so that part of the foundation you can definitely call a charity. That's why we really have those two entities. Um, so there's certain
Please,
things.
please describe first what they do.
So we only have the Fresh Table Foundation,
Ah,
and that's
okay.
the one that we have next to Fresh Table. So Fresh Table is a commercial part, and then the Fresh Table Foundation. Basically, there's not a really enlightening story behind it. It's just because we had with Share a Meal, we made so many numbers that we never expected. Our accountant at some point said, "Good story, but start doing that on a different account. This doesn't belong to the commercial use." So that's where we started the foundation. And then the second part is where I just mentioned about really my own vision for leadership and self efficacy. So that's why the Fresh Table Foundation also is invested in that. We really believe in investing in the next generation of impact creators. And I think it's also our responsibility. I just turned 30. I'm not that old yet, but also I'm not that young. And I think we should really think about the next generation of the ones that are creating impact. So that's why with the Fresh Table Foundation focuses on food accessibility at one. And that's where a percentage of Fresh Table comes in as a donation. It's always 30% of the profit at least. And I did that. I really incorporate that in the model because now it really depends on how many people you can help by the commercial success that you make. And I really wanted to make this, and it's just, I think it's just a personal vision as well on that. I really wanted to make it the end goal to really help other people. That's the end goal of it all. And yes, we make money, yes, we make profit in the meantime, but the end goal is that the foundation should not just be running on donations externally, but also from the business, because those two should go up hand in hand. So the more commercial success you make, the more you can help other people. And that we would never like turn the other one down, and that it should also be leveled. So that's the reason behind it.
Okay, cool. So how do customers and mentors keep you on the right path to getting to execute on the vision?
That's a good question. I think in mentors, I learned a lot from gaining feedback, but also accepting different perspectives and visions. And the most important that is that just me as a founder, I also learned a lot, and being open to being wrong sometimes and really challenging your own perspectives, because we are in this social domain that has been called very woke in media, for example. People expect for you to be the thought leader, but you're not, and often you are wrong. So I'm also always challenging my own perspectives, and mentors can take form in different forms. So the employees that work at Fresh Table are also my mentors in a sense, and the people that we try to help with the foundation. I think it's like in that they keep you in check, and I think it's important to have people around you that also let you know when you're wrong or when your thinking needs to be challenged, because whenever you always have yay sayers next to you, you're not in the right environment. You also need people that are challenging your views. So I think in that sense, and with our customers as well, they often bring us to new perspectives. They have really creative ideas of what they want, and that challenges us to think outside the box. Because of our customers, we constantly grow, and we came up, for example, with an impact station that really allows for the residual waste of food to be brought down to 6%. So that means that everything that we have left over, we either compost it in the food garden, so new food can be grown, or we actually donate the parts that are untouched and hygienically conserved to the homeless shelter, for example. And this is one of the ideas that came up out of a question from a customer. So we learn by doing together. And that's why I see Fresh Table as a platform, as an accelerator, instead of a leader in something, because we learn from each other and it's really equally yoked. And we just want to be a partner for people to accomplish their mission on Earth.
Yeah. So how do you create a safe space for people to to give you feedback, especially for employees or especially with an immigrant background.
Yeah, it's a good
That's quite
question.
a vulnerable place to be.
Yeah,
I've
I think I personally invested in a lot in leadership, specifically inclusive leadership. It's also what I did my master's in leadership and change management and my own development. And I think it's really important to recognize what kind of type of leader you want to be. So I'm a strong believer in servant leadership and really and being also more coaching in that sense. But also as a leader, humbling yourself down a bit to give somebody more space to talk about what their feelings and what they're on about, and also realizing that whenever you work with a certain target group, there's more to come with that area. So it's never just business and private is strictly apart. If you work with people with a refugee background, you also have to take into account mental health, family issues, um, developments in their home country that can also affect their productivity at work. So those kind of things are really important for you as a leader to invest in and to read on about. And I think I constantly want to challenge myself. I'm not saying that I'm always perfect in that, but is to establish a relationship where there's more understanding for the other side as well. And a clear example of that, for example, is when people start working with us. They get a personal development plan. And in that personal development plan, we constantly review every 2 months of what your personal growth goals are. So not just I want to acquire that and that hard skill, but also I want to grow as a person that's more empathic. I want to let go of my stress at work. I want to be this and that. And we review each other, as I said, equally. So they get the opportunity to also review me and my skills as a leader, so I can constantly develop in becoming a better leader for them. Because we can read all the books, we can gain all the masters, but in practice, you have to be open to learning from the people that you want to be a leader to. So I think that's, yeah, the essence in it, but it's also, I think, more of a character development. As we grow older, we come to learn that we're not always right and we shouldn't be. And yeah, creating that safe space starts with being that safe space for yourself first. So being an open leader to yourself and having that own personal growth development before you can also being able to become that safe space for another person.
Yeah. So how do you build that safe space then for yourself? How did that process start to grow
It was a
personally?
hard journey. It's a hard journey. I'm going to be honest. It really starts with being a reflection to yourself, being able to look in the mirror, but not always just look at the negative things that you could improve on. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially just in the general domain, not specifically social, we're very hard on ourselves. And especially when I look at women, it's always something that we can be better at instead of
Hmm.
focusing on what we're already doing good. So be that safe space. I also try to look at, okay, what are my qualities? What are my skills? And what can I invest in? And I think also being able to have open conversations with people from different backgrounds, with different mindsets, whether that be ethical background, political, or social class, for example. So I think that was really important to me, to have those conversations and also surround yourself with people that can provide different perspectives. So when I started my business, I didn't find any mentor or anything that I could look up to or ask questions. And I find that really hard at the beginning. So I was one of the first entrepreneurs in the family, for example. My surroundings were not with entrepreneurs. I was studying, and everybody else was just focusing on being a student. And if there were any entrepreneurs, they were always in the business department of the university, never in the societal part, the sciences. But that never really let me be back down. I thought if there's not a mentor around me, maybe I should start creating and being one myself because you attract what you want to have. So I think with that mindset, I was just growing and learning at the same time, but also allow myself to feel the fuck ups. If it doesn't work out, just accept it. That's also part of the journey. Really write things down. I journaled a lot, so it's really fun to read back in at the start 2020 what I was worried about, and then looking back now and where we are now, I'm thinking, God, what were you worried about? It doesn't make any sense.
So out of curiosity, what were you worried about?
That's a good question. I'm definitely worried about COVID. Worried if I could juggle my studies with the business, if I wasn't being too idealistic, if this would work or not. Um, at the end of the day, it all went well. And at the beginning, I started my concept as a B2C concept. So the goal was to have some healthy, delicious, nutritious meal prep kind of service 2 times a week. Due to sustainability reasons and not being able to scale that up, we eventually went, thanks to the demand of a customer, to the B2B side, which allowed us to create more impact. But also, from the beginning, I swore down, I'm never doing events, I'm never doing anything in the business area. It's too much. We want to create an impact on people locally. And just looking back at that, it's just funny. Like sometimes it's very hilarious to see how you were thinking in closed boxes and just saying never and I'm not doing that and that. And yeah, seeing how you grow as a person also reflects on the decisions that you've been able to make.
Did you find a mentor, by the way?
I found multiple. Yeah, actually, I think countless now. I think the term mentor, there's some that obviously advertise themselves as mentors, but there's also some people in my life that are mentors to me that they are not aware of. So if I would count them out of my head, I would say at least 12.
That's a lot. But
Yeah.
what do you qualify as a mentor then?
It's a good question. I think a mentor really stimulates you to see your own potential and really I think that's also a difference with a coach because sometimes people want to be leaders, but they are already chewing down what you need to do and where you need to go. I think a mentor is really. I always give the example of the Disney movie of Kung Fu Panda. So there is Shifu the master, and he's really like giving his all. Sometimes very vague stories and metaphors, but they're there to lead you and give you examples and then they really believe in the good potential in you and try to bring that out of you. And I think a good mentor is helping you find yourself and find your own potential and really helping you like take away the clouds within your thoughts, if you can put it in that simple
Yeah,
way. And that's
yeah,
what's a good mentor is to me.
yeah. So really give you guidance, but not tell you how to do things.
Yeah, and really help you see clearly. I think that's most of the thing.
I want to shift to the mindset part because
Yes,
that is one thing that truly I really admire about you. We had a panel discussion where you said something really powerful, which is that you treat your mind like a sanctuary.
100%.
What does that mean?
So treating your mind as a sanctuary, you can also compare it to a temple.
Yeah.
You are kind of the security person in the doors of your mind. And I think it's really important to protect whatever goes on in there. We often do
Mhm.
not have an influence on people's actions or things that are happening in the world, but we do have an influence on what's happening inside of here. So treating your mind as a sanctuary is as treating it as a business. So you are the CEO of your mind. You get to hire people, you get to fire them, you get to demote them or promote them. You are in charge of what's happening there. And I think it's really important to protect that with everything that you have. I learned that at quite a young age. I think if there's a lot of chaos happening around you, but also in the world or business wise, you have to have that's also the example I wanted to give with the safe space. You have to have a safe space within yourself. And if your mind is constantly cluttered with things and there's everything's coming inside of there, every negative opinion is sitting there and every update on the news is also in there, and it's not filtered, you are not being that safe space for yourself. So first of all, start really decluttering that space and having a kind of filter of anything that you let inside. And I like to think of things in an onion ring. So things in my life, I place them on different levels and you peel them down like an onion. And not everything should get into the core, the center of your mind. And treating that as a sanctuary really allows yourself to give a sort of clearance of what gets into your mind and what gets to go out.
Okay. So how do you do that in terms of because you want certain inputs to end up in that core,
Hmm.
especially when you're talking to mentors and the likes, but you also want to keep a bit, yeah, let's say negative influences out, like
Hmm.
uh, the guy across the pond doing something incredibly stupid, or Israel
Yeah.
not doing what they're supposed to do in Gaza. How do you protect yourself from that while still being able to have that conversation with your employees? Because you told me part of the safe space you want to create is also um, to be informed enough to have a thoughtful conversation with people about their circumstances. How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's never a linear line. So I'm still learning, of course, and some days it goes better than the other ones. But in general, I would say the art of letting go, because negative thoughts and negative things are still happening in the world, and things still happen to yourself. And it's unrealistic to think that they're never happening, not entering your mind. But the most important thing is, how are you going to filter it? So what would make like, how would you make a decision of what gets to stay and what not? And what I think is, of course, that mindset of not wanting to sit in frustration is, something comes into your mind. Okay, what can I do? Take tangible actions. And we're just talking about things, for example, across the pond. So we got a message in the last few days of Ramadan of, hey, we want to host a whole iftar in Lights of Gaza on the Dam Square in Amsterdam. And it was only 12 hours ahead of time. And can you guys provide food for more than 600, 700 people? And I said, sure, why not? Because I learned that all that frustration that has built up in my head, that needs to be let out into tangible actions. So this is a really big example of doing something more in a charity line. But it could also be toned down to something that comes into your mind that's negative, and writing it down or journal it, or just having a conversation with a good friend about it. It's just that you have to deal with those negative thoughts, and then being able to not forget, but at least forgive the things that are surrounding that, and then place it into a certain area in your head. It should never consume you twice, because something that's negative that happened to you, we talk about not outside influences of politics, etc., but just in general in life. For example, somebody did something wrong to you when it comes to your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's the art of being able to sit in that feeling, accept it, acknowledge it, but also being able to take a certain action to it, and then really let it go. So I think it's just the art of letting go really takes a lot of practice. It's not always going as well as people think it may be on my end. But it's something that I really learned practicing, because it gives me a lot of sanity. Also, my personal life, I'm really a person that's all about forgiveness. And a lot of people mistake that as saying, well, you're a pushover, everybody gets to just do, and you're forgiving them. Forgiveness does not come with access. And sometimes you can forgive but remove the access. Forgiveness is to protect that sanctuary in your mind, because why would I experience the same negative feeling twice? First, when it happened to me in person, and then I'm replaying that whole scenario by being mad in my head. I'm not giving nobody, no person, that much power over my own mind. And I think that's really the most important thing, to really develop yourself, but also come to a terms where you did not do all that work on your own personal growth to then just let somebody else ruin that. So protect whatever is in here, because that's the one thing that you control.
Yeah. Do you have, besides the journaling, do you have specific routines to or to keep yourself sane?
Yeah, sometimes I'm a little bit insane, so it doesn't always work. That's just a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Definitely journaling, of course. I walk a lot, so I could easily walk for 3 hours. I'll put on some headphones. Sometimes a podcast is running, sometimes nothing's running. And I just empty out my mind and just walk in nature. And what I really like to do is to tone down everything. Really simple. I would walk and just sit with cows and sheep. And I would love that, because nature always brings you down to the basic essence of human beings. And there's no LinkedIn post or no financial forecast that can then disrupt me. It's something that's really simple, because you sit within the biological basics of yourself. Next to that, also talking to the right people that have different perspectives that might not be in your sector at all. So really good friends and mentors that may not even be entrepreneurs, but they give you really different perspective on how to deal with things. So also surround yourself with people that have different opinions on that. That really helps. And besides that, I I'm also Muslim, so I pray 5 times a day, and that really allows me to have a reset button 5 times a day that I don't get to decide, because these are set prayer times. So they actually like sound like a buzzer, like the alarm that we hear every first of the month in the Netherlands. But then I hear it 5 times a day, and I'm obliged to put down my work and every negative thought that I have and just disconnect completely. There is no phone involved. There's nothing involved. And I think that also really helps me with structuring those thoughts specifically, and really find a way to really put everything into place.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to just cut off any thought process, anything that is going on.
Yeah, and for
So,
people that may be not religious, I also really recommend having certain meditation times that you just place, for example, at 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. You always check in on those moments. Everything has to accommodate to that schedule of you, and not you accommodating to the schedule of everything. And I think that's the most important thing, that we really centerize also having those little pause moments during a day and not just during life, because what we see now is we work all year and then we're lucky to get a vacation, but also find those centering moments every day, because tomorrow's not promised. And if you always live in the future, and that's really, I think, one of the culprits of being a founder or entrepreneur, we're always thinking about, okay, ahead of the future, ahead of the time, that's when I get to rest, when I reach that and that mountain.
hmm.
But it's also the art of being in the now and really enjoying life now, and also appreciating that you are allowed to work hard, but you're also allowed to really rest even harder. And rest is not some kind of reward that we have to achieve after we climb that mountaintop. Rest is something that you deserve right now and that you need. It's not some kind of bonus that you need to earn. And I think that's really something important, especially since, well, the podcast is still called Women Disrupting Tech, especially when we talk about women specifically. I see a lot of women tend to reward themselves with something after they would go through everything. So it's really, it's sometimes it really is weird to me to place some kind of rewardment after suffering, and it should not be linked to that. You deserve to rest, and rest is one of your basic needs in terms of you getting some fuel and oil to then grow again. And it shouldn't be something that's seen as a reward, because then you get burned out and you don't know what happened and all of that. So, and it goes for men as well, but I think I
Yeah.
can really see this tendency in women even more.
Yeah, I was about to say that this is especially the rest part is valid for men.
Yeah.
Mutual friend of ours, Michiel, actually has a buzzer at 12 o'clock every day,
Yeah, exactly.
where he said basically giving him a prompt like "How are you doing?" or something along those lines, which is I think a really powerful thing that I've started to implement for myself. Not at 12, but at 1. But
And how's that going for you?
um, it's interesting because it actually does stop me in my tracks. So I can be sometimes it's like really annoying because I'm working on something. I'm starting to work around it. So in a sense, like build a little routine that, for instance, I have lunch just prior to that, so it sort of comes at a natural break. It doesn't really
Yeah,
disturb my
beautiful.
uh, my productivity that much. But on the other hand, I think it's even if it does stop deep work, I think it's really powerful because it just takes you up to the surface again. It gives your head a sort of rest, like, oh, yeah, I need to do something different. And I don't walk that much as you do. I do walk a lot. I make sure I get my 10,000 steps a day, either running or
And does it help you clear your mind, or?
oh, the running and the working out. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
there's one workout that I do on a Tuesday evening. When I come back from that, I'm physically exhausted and mentally
beautiful.
totally clear.
It's
It's
very
like
recognizable. Yeah,
it's it's
I have the
yeah.
same with boxing. So I've been kickboxing and Thai boxing since I was 15, and that for me is really my outlet as well. So I did a Thai box camp, for example, last year in Thailand. It really resets your mind because you're not able to think. if you're thinking, I'm always making the wrong moves, and then you get hit in your face, and then it's done. So
Yeah,
it's actually, you have to protect yourself by not thinking, and that's really, you're forced to really just be in the moment. And I love that. And actually, just what you explained as well, by having that timer set, for me, that's with the prayer times. It's just, I started to really plan my appointments around it, and really centering, and actually in the essence, you're telling yourself, I'm centering myself and my pause moments above anything else. And I think that's really powerful move to make as a person in general, but specifically for founders, because we can go relentlessly long. We can start at 8 a.m. and then never finish basically.
yeah,
So I think it's really good that there's something that's holding us accountable to also take a break and just be in the moment, and not always go fast forward to the future. So I think it's really profound what you just said.
yeah. So, what would you say to women who really still feel like, okay, we can take a break if we deserve it, and we can go to sleep if we deserve it, if, i.e., if we've finished our work, which I don't think is ever finished, especially not for founders, but also for people in corporate life.
Actually, for once, I don't have a long answer. It's just, rest is not a reward, it's a right. And that's it. I think really changing your mindset about what rest means to you, and why do you feel that you have to earn that part. I think it's really in having to look back into yourself and how you're wired and what you've been through in life. I think always it stems from somewhere, that you feel the need to prove your worth before you're able to rest or get a reward. So really look inward to why you're thinking like that, and try to really embrace yourself. And I think it also comes down to a little bit of more self love and self care, because often, not only women, I see a lot of men doing that too. We wake up and we run out of the door, and the first thing we're doing is working on something for somebody else. But I always love a slow morning. I get up, even if I'm not hungry, there is a whole breakfast that I'm making, and I'm taking my morning walk. I think it's really important. Those little things really reflect. I can really tell when I'm talking to a person by the little routines that they make, in which involves themselves, how much they care for themselves. So, and it's not something that I could place as somebody being a negative or a positive person, but just in a sense, getting up in the morning and really doing something for yourself first before you turn on that laptop. For a lot of people, like 5 a.m. club, it's waking up and meditating first. It's really centralizing what actually matters. And at the end of the day, we can be the biggest founders, can create the most impact, but without you being the same person, it does not matter. It does not matter at all. So I think really prioritizing yourself and stop seeing rest as a reward, but as a right, I think that's really the way to advance things.
Sounds like a great place to move to my final question. So we've been talking about impact a lot, about yeah, basically keeping your mind sane, and so I was wondering how men can contribute to a society where we don't um, look at sustainability and diversity and inclusion as a sort of add-on. How do we make it just a no-brainer? How can men contribute to that world?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think acknowledging the positions that they hold, and it's similar to that geographical luck that I just explained. There's also maybe a gender luck, that maybe you're born into the more dominant role that's more controlling in the system. So really acknowledging that position that you have, that might be a privilege, and using it into your advantage. So when it comes to create an impact, whether it be sustainability. There's a lot of voices. I've been on a lot of platforms, and I do a lot of keynote speaking, where I would be the only woman, or I would be the only younger woman, and then I would also be the only person of color. So really acknowledging that, and I've had a few talks where it would be with mostly predominantly white heterosexual men next to me. But often than not, I would find people actually there that were using their position and said, "Well, I have this story. There was a question about diversity, and they said, well, this is my opinion, but I'd rather give the stage to somebody that has experienced it." So I think it's really acknowledging your position and that luck that you have, and sharing that platform. I wouldn't say toning down yourself, because I think it's a journey that we make together, and it would not make any sense because the world really consists out of men and women, and anything in between, and every race in between that. So yeah, I think my advice would be to acknowledge that role, see the kind of luck that you have and how you could be able to share that with other people, and how you can use your privileges to advance the journey on creating more impact on the sustainable side, but also when it comes more to diversity and inclusion, and being able to recognize when you're sitting at a table where you might not even have the most knowledge, and maybe there's a woman or somebody of color that is more equipped to talk about that topic, and then realizing, well, maybe I'm just sitting here because I really fit the standard quota of being the seven check mark, as yours and I like said.
Yeah.
So really being, I think the gist of it that I'm trying to say is really recognizing that things that may have come easily, I would not say easily because I think still men work hard, even like if you're predominantly white and straight, people work for what they get. But realizing that a lot of these things that you get to achieve are not a standard for a majority of people. So
No.
really realizing that those opportunities that you get, and I think that's also a reflection moment to really sit in the moment and think, whoa, I'm invited again to speak on a stage, but realizing that most of the time women, and predominantly women of color, may not have that stage, or so just thinking in that sense, and then not sitting in that frustration, but thinking, okay, what kind of action can I take, and how can I be an ally, and really searching for those tools within your network and ask people around you, what can I do for you? Often you don't have to come up with a solution. Sometimes you just have to ask, and more than not, people are, especially the women that I know, more than willing to share what they actually need. And I think that's also like a two ended sword, where we also need to take accountability of expressing what we actually need, because just complaining what's not working, speaking from my own perspective as a woman of color, is that it's also important to really express what you actually need to be changed, and not just complain about what's not working, but what do we want for men to do. So I think this is a really valid question that raises a good point.
So it's a two-way street.
Yes,
Yasmina Khababi, thank you very much for an amazing conversation.
thank you.
If people would like to learn more about you, connect with you, or learn more about Freshtable and amazing work you are doing, where would you like to send them?
Definitely freshtable.com, our website, but also you can shoot a message to me directly on LinkedIn or email me at yasmina@freshtable.nl.
Cool. And we'll include those links in the show notes. So,
Yes, thank you.
Yasmina, thank you from the bottom of my heart for this conversation. Really amazing. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's it for episode 126 of Women Disrupting Tech with Yasmina Khababi, titled Building Permissionless Inclusion One Meal at a Time. Yasmina and I hope that you found our conversation as enlightening and inspiring as we intended it to be. And if you have any questions for Yasmina, please share them in the comments on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. When you want to connect with Yasmina or learn more about Freshtable, please check out the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog via the link in the caption. In the show notes, you can also find more information about the Embrace Health event that I mentioned in the intro. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please leave a rating or a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leaving a rating or a review helps new listeners find the podcast and supports my guests by giving them a bigger platform. If you're not already following us, please make sure to follow Women Disrupting Tech on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, or YouTube. Following Women Disrupting Tech supports Yasmina and my other guests to close the funding gap by the end of 2032. For more information about Women Disrupting Tech, you can also follow us on social media. You can find the podcast everywhere as at Women Disrupting Tech. Women Disrupting Tech is also on Substack. On Substack, you'll find in-depth stories and behind-the-scenes insights from each episode, plus the trends that I've spotted across 126 conversations. So don't forget to subscribe to Women Disrupting Tech on Substack. Finally, if you want to connect with me directly, please reach out via email dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog or connect with me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply search for my name, Dirk-Jan Hupkes, and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, keep being awesome.